What if I told you that the single most important factory on Earth has no smokestacks, no real assembly lines, and yet it produces every single bite of food you eat and the very air you breathe? Well, today we're diving into the incredible process that makes it all possible: photosynthesis. So, it seems like a pretty simple question, right? You're probably thinking, well, from the soil and water, of course. And you're not wrong, that's definitely part of the story. But it's kind of like saying a car is just made of gasoline. It completely misses the most crucial ingredient of all, the spark that provides the energy. That's right, the real energy source is way out there, 93 million miles away. Plants have somehow mastered the incredible art of, well, eating sunlight. And the story of how we figure this all out, it's a scientific detective story for the ages. For centuries, this was a complete mystery. I mean, people really thought that plants just ate soil. It took a whole series of brilliant minds, each one adding a crucial piece to the puzzle, to finally crack the code of how plants create life from light.
It all started back in the 1770s with Joseph Priestley. He found that a plant could somehow restore air that a candle had, used up. Then, a few years later, Jan Ingenhousz added a supercritical detail. This magical restoration thing, it only happens in sunlight. But the biggest revelation, the real game changer, came much later, in the 1930s, when Cornelius van Niel proved that the oxygen plants release comes from splitting water molecules, not carbon dioxide. That was a huge deal.
And this is Priestley's incredibly elegant way of putting it. I mean, think about it. For the time, this was a revolutionary concept. This idea of a give-and-take relationship between plants and animals, with the air connecting them. This one simple observation basically laid the foundation for everything we now know about ecosystems.
Okay, so we've got the history. Now let's get into the mechanics. We're going to zoom way in, past the leaf, past the cell, and right into the tiny green engine of photosynthesis itself, the chloroplast. This is the factory floor where all the magic happens.
So here's the official definition: physicochemical process. Yeah, that sounds pretty complex, I know. But all it really means is that plants use the physical energy of light to power a chemical reaction that creates their own food. Put simply, they turn sunlight into sugar.
And what makes this little factory so ridiculously efficient is its clear division of labor. Phase 1 happens in an area called the grana. You can think of these as the solar panels. And Phase 2 happens in the stroma, which is like the main factory floor where the actual product gets assembled. 2 departments, 2 totally distinct jobs.
So these 2 jobs are called the light reactions and the Calvin cycle. The light reactions are like the factory's power grid. They capture solar energy and store it in these short-term rechargeable batteries, special molecules called ATP and NADPH. Then you have the Calvin cycle. That's the assembly line, and it uses the energy from those batteries to build the final product, sugar.
The goal of Phase 1, the light reactions, is beautifully simple. Convert light energy into chemical energy. That's it. Pigments, like chlorophyll, catch photons from the sun, and that kicks off a chain reaction that splits water, releases oxygen as a byproduct, and charges up those ATP and NADPH batteries. That's the entire purpose of this first step.
All right, now let's head over to the assembly line in the stroma and see how all this captured energy is used to actually build something. The power is on, and production is about to begin. This assembly line is the famous Calvin cycle, named after the guy who figured it all out, Melvin Calvin. Now, you sometimes hear it called the dark reactions, but that's, well, it's pretty misleading. It's not that it happens in the dark, it just doesn't use light directly. Instead, it runs entirely on the ATP and NADPH that were made during the light reactions. So, as long as the power grid is on, the assembly line can run. And here's the recipe for making just one molecule of glucose, which is the plant's food. Just look at the energy investment here. To build one single sugar molecule, the plant has to spend a ton of its captured solar energy, 18 of those ATP batteries and 12 of the NADPH ones. It's a costly process for sure, but the result is this stable, energy-rich molecule that fuels the plant's growth and, forms the very foundation of pretty much the entire food chain on Earth.
But what happens when the factory has to operate in really extreme conditions, like, say, intense heat and drought? Well, nature, being the brilliant innovator it is, came up with a really smart upgrade to the standard process.
See, in hot, dry places, plants have a problem. To get the carbon dioxide they need, they have to open these tiny pores in their leaves. But when they do that, they lose a lot of water. They also risk something called photorespiration, which is this really wasteful process where the main enzyme accidentally grabs oxygen instead of CO2, costing the plant precious energy. To get around this, evolution developed a super clever workaround, the C4 pathway.
And this table just shows the difference so clearly. C3 plants, like wheat and rice, are the standard model. They do great in cooler, milder climates. But C4 plants, like corn and sugarcane, are basically turbocharged. They have a special leaf structure and a CO2 pumping mechanism that lets them just thrive in high temperatures with incredible productivity and almost no waste. This adaptation is a huge reason why crops like corn are just so incredibly productive.
Okay, so let's zoom back out from the microscopic level for a minute and just appreciate the massive global impact of this one single process. When you really boil it all down, this one process provides two things, just two. But they're two things that are absolutely essential for pretty much all life on Earth as we know it.
First, it is the primary source of all food on this planet. Every bit of energy in your body right now, whether you ate a salad or a steak from a cow that ate grass, you can trace it all back to a leaf that captured sunlight. And second, it releases oxygen, creating and maintaining the very atmosphere we need to survive. Food and air. It's literally the foundation of our existence.
And this brings us right back to Melvin Calvin. After he unlocked the secrets of this perfect biological solar energy converter, he actually dedicated the rest of his career to applying its principles to our own technology. He pioneered research in renewable energy and what we now call artificial photosynthesis. He totally understood that nature had already solved one of our greatest challenges.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. For billions of years, plants have perfected the art of turning sunlight into fuel. So as we're searching for sustainable ways to power our own future, maybe, just maybe, the answer isn't buried deep in the earth. Maybe it's all around us, quietly eating the sun.